Hello everyone, this is an analysis where button 3 bets versus under the gun, 100 big blinds deep, and the flop comes queen jack 8 rainbow. The stack to pot ratio is roughly 3.5, and big blind has checked, and this is in position strategy. Overall, you will be betting 50% of your range in this spot and checking the rest. The only size you're going to be using is quarter. Solver never uses half pot or pot. The blue area represents, for this hand category, how often you'll be betting with this hand. For example, 10-9, you're betting 60% of your 10-9s, or nut straights, and you're going to be checking the rest. As far as the hand categories go, every hand category excludes all of the hand categories to its left. For example, bottom set, this represents all of the bottom sets, except for bottom sets with middle set, top set, or nut straights. From this, we can go over each different hand category. Also, the percentages represent how often you have this hand. In this scenario, you have nut straights 10% of the time when you 3-bet button versus under the gun. As you can see, nut straights and top sets are roughly bet half the time, whereas middle sets and bottom sets are almost never bet. For two pairs, top two pairs are bet more often than bottom two pairs. Aces, kings, and top pairs are bet around 50% of the time, and middle pair is not bet very often at all. Hands with two blockers, such as 10-10 and 9-9, are bet very frequently. Surprisingly enough, hands with good equity, as bluffs, are not bet all that often, like King 10 and gutters. The reason for this is probably because when you c-bet this hand and you face a small check raise out of position, you're going to have a very tough time. And when you face a small check raise with a gutter, you don't really want to fold, and it's like not a fun time. That's my assumption for why solver doesn't bet that all that often. And then with complete air, solver does end up betting it pretty frequently, just because when you bet and someone raises, you have a very clear decision to fold. This is very useful and all, but we need to know how to differentiate between which nut straights to bet and which nut straights to check, or which top two pairs to bet and which top two pairs to check, or more importantly, what combos of aces should we be betting, and which combos of aces should we be checking. Typically, it's just the stronger aces are going to be bets. Another thing that you can use to differentiate between hands are blockers. In this scenario, any hand with a queen, jack, or 8, which are pair blockers, or 10 and 9, which are straight and straight draw blockers, these I consider blockers. When you have a nutted hand, such as 10-9, you don't want to have a blocker in your hand because you don't want out of position to fold. So a hand like 10-9, 7-6, which doesn't block any of out of position's continuing range, is a bet. And a hand like Queen Jack 10-9, which completely blocks out of position's continuing frequency by blocking his top pairs and middle pairs, is typically a check. And the reverse is true for hands where you don't want out of position to continue, or you don't want out of position to check raise. Hands like aces, you don't want out of position to check raise, so having a blocker increases your bet frequency. I created a new graph to represent the differences between hands when they have a blocker in them. In this situation, I differentiate between nut straights and nut straights with a top pair blocker. As you can see, having a top pair with the nut straight dramatically decreases the frequency at which you bet. And this is how you can differentiate between hands. This is also true for queens. A hand like Queen Queen 10-10, which blocks out of position from having straight draws, is going to be a check, whereas a hand like King King Queen Queen or Ace Queen Queen, which doesn't block any of out of position's check raise or check call frequency, is going to be a bet. And then After that, the reverse is true. A hand like Queen Jack or top 2, you're not super keen to face a check raise with, and having a 10 or 9 prevents out of position from check raising as often, so you will be betting these hands much more frequently. Also, the 10 and 9 gives your hand an open ender and a gutter. You can apply the same logic to all the top pair combinations. Queen 8, such as Queen 10 8, with a open ender and a straight blocker, is more likely to be a bet, and a hand like Ace King Queen 8 or Ace Queen 8 7, which is just top and bottom, is more likely to be a check because you're more likely to face a check raise. I also split the aces into 2 categories: aces with any sort of blocker and aces without any blockers. Aces with a gutter or a straight blocker or pair blocker is bet at roughly 65% of the time, whereas aces without any blockers is bet much less frequently. It's not bet all the time, so you can say something like ace, ace, queen, jack, which has 2 blockers, or that's not correct. Ace, ace, queen, 10, which has a pair blocker and a straight blocker, is probably always going to be a bet, whereas aces without any blockers, like ace, ace, 5, deuce, is probably gonna be a pure check. I would imagine also having more equity in a hand would increase its bet frequency. For example, ace, ace, queen 10 with 2 backdoor flush draws is almost certainly going to be a bet. You can apply the same logic to kings. And the same situation applies for top pairs, middle pairs, and bottom pairs. Besides, this is a super specific scenario, but the information you learn here can be applied to pretty much any straight board with a 3.5 SPR spot. Like Queen Jack 8 plays roughly the same as Queen Jack 9, Jack 10 9, any board with a straight on it. And the dynamic of in position using a small cbet size will probably remain the same. That's all. See ya, guys.